Hey guys, last week we took a look at the Enneagram types of characters of Downton Abbey. And this week I'm introducing the Myers-Briggs personality typing system that is more widely used and known than the Enneagram. But since there are 16 types rather than 9, it's a little more complicated. So, Enneagram focuses on how a person copes under pressure, and Myers-Briggs is about how a person thinks. So, they're compatible, not contradictory. Both are great ways to get to know characters, family workers, coworkers, and yourself. And I fell in love with psychology because I had no idea how people worked at all. They're a complete mystery. And when I realized that there is a way to understand people, it made life a lot easier and more meaningful. Myers Briggs can do the same for you without learning psychology. And if you're a writer, it can help you to create realistic characters that your audience can resonate with. And if you're a moviegoer, you'll have an understanding of why some characters grab you and others don't. To make it simple, the first letter of the 16 types will either be an I or an E, and I stands for introvert, E stands for extrovert. And if you know which one of those you are, you only have to narrow it down from 8 types rather than 16. Now, a lot of people think that introvert means social. It doesn't. You can be a social introvert because introvert means that you revitalize alone. Extroverts revitalize in the company of others. So you may not have any discomfort with people at all, but you still need time alone to recharge. Got it? Easy peasy. And as before with the Enneagram, there's no best type. They all have pros and cons. Unlike the Enneagram, your type can change with maturity and learning, or you move and you're around different people and different influences. So if you haven't had a test in a while, you might want to retest. When I first took my Myers Briggs type test, my type was pretty extreme. Now my type is still the same, but it's much more moderate. So, and if you want to guess my type, I'd love to know what you think my type is and what yours is. So let me know in the comments. And while you're there, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And I will link to the free Myers-Briggs test in the comments so you can see if you correctly guessed your type. All right. So we talked about I and E. To narrow it down a little further, there are 4 temperaments: the Analyst, Idealists, Sentinels, and Explorers. And if you know the first letter in your type, you're almost all the way home. Analysts have NT as the second and third letter, and these are strategic thinkers. These are INTJs, ENTJs, INTPs, and ENTPs. And what they have in common is that they thrive on abstract thinking and objective analysis. These are brainy people. They're not emotional people. They're rational people. If you want problems solved, ask one of them. If you want compassion or to hug it out, don't go to them. They get off on achieving mastery or understanding things. They desire competency and autonomy. These are big picture thinkers who can break it down in actionable steps. They're unconventional, though, and think outside the box. So they need freedom to express and explore. And they can come across as aloof and are not known for emotional intelligence. They can definitely overthink a thing to death and get bogged down in perfectionism. Others may see them as looking down on everyone else because they can appear condescending. Idealists are the NFs. These are the INFJs, ENFJs, INFPs, and ENFPs. Idealists are imaginative, passionate, deeply rational, and can connect with others on emotional levels easily. They intuit hidden motives and future possibilities. These people spark transformation in others and themselves. They're future oriented dreamers who yearn for a better world. They live with sensitivity and optimism. They bring hope and a sense of purpose to the world, which makes them natural motivators. The flip side of this is that they can be impractical, can have trouble executing their dreams, and may take things personally. Guardians are the SJs, so ISTJs, ESTJs, ISFJs, and ESFJs. So guardians are the bedrock of society because they make up 40 to 50% of the population. These people are organizers, protectors, and stewards of tradition. They value order, duty, reliability, and act as the glue that holds communities together. They're grounded, practical, reliable, responsible, and like structure. They like to create order, closure, and security. Rules, schedules, and hierarchies are seen as good things by guardians because they create stability and predictability. These people see what needs doing and do it. Of course, every type has a downside, and guardians can be inflexible. and not open to new things. They may have trouble adapting when tradition fails or is attacked. And the last type is the artisans or SPs, and these are the ISTPs, ESTPs, ISFPs, and ESFPs. Artisans are doers. They like to take action right now and have concrete experience rather than dreams. They love freedom and spontaneity and present moment focus. These are hands on people who are observant, impulsive, pleasure oriented, and sensuous. Their intelligence is tactile. On the flip side, they can be short sighted, inconsistent, unreliable, and uncommitted. They can overdo the sensuality and descend into hedonism. They also need challenge to stave off boredom. So, what do you think? Do you have an idea of which Game of Thrones character you might be? Let's dig a little deeper, shall we? So, our first analyst is the INTJ or Peter Baelish Littlefinger. The INTJ is the master planner, mad scientist, evil genius type who is often the bad guy or villain in a story. Rarely is the INTJ the good guy in a book or the movie, although he certainly could be. The INTJ, I would love to see that in actually. If you wanna make a story about an INTJ, or if you know of one, send it to me. I'd love to check it out. So the INTJ is the introvert, not a social butterfly. He is typically alone. He's the analyst. He's a thinker with insatiable curiosity who wants to master whatever he's interested in. So INTJs are driven and they easily see through phoniness and hypocrisy. So you don't try to get over on the INTJ. And if you know Game of Thrones, you know that Peter played the long game. He romanced Lysa Arryn, who was married to Jon Arryn. He enticed her to kill her husband to get rid of the hand of the king so that it would cause chaos, which it did. And after Bran was pushed from the tower, he sent a killer to finish the job and gave him a knife that he stole from Tyrion Lannister to make it look like Tyrion was responsible. He wanted the Starks at war with the Lannisters, and this also came to pass. Even though Peter said he loved Catelyn, he used her in his plots too. He took every advantage to pursue his ambition, and this is how the INTJ gains the reputation as evil sorcerer. They're long-range planners that see the details and can be really good manipulators. Now, I'm not saying that all INTJs use this ability in this way, but it's what they're famous for. Curiously, most INTJs are men. If you find a female INTJ, they say it's like finding a unicorn because it's the rarest Myers-Briggs type. So less than 1% of all people are INTJ females. Now, Bran Stark is our INTP, and INTPs are known as logicians. They're the thinkers whose minds are always buzzing with ideas, questions, insight, and curiosity. They are seen as detached and reserved and can be baffled by the illogical, irrational way that feelings influence people. They aren't great with feels. They typically don't know how to do feelings, so they may not even try. That's Bran, right? When Bran meets the three-eyed raven, he's wildly curious about what this bird is, the visions he's getting, and why it's all happening. He experienced with warging into his dog and then Hodor. He's not particularly concerned with the war, his family, or any practical issues. He doesn't seem to have any personal relationship with Mirror or Jojen Reed, even though they drag him all over creation as well, providing for him and Hodor and protecting them. Bran is like a detached observer. Is he really even there? That's the INTP. And our ENTJ is Cersei Lannister. ENTJs are known as the commanders. They're bold, strong-willed leaders who find a way to do what they want. They have sharp minds that are often ruthless. They're about achievement, greatness, and winning. They're dominant, forceful, unforgiving, and unyielding. They're not great with people that they perceive as lazy or inefficient, and they can let them know in direct and insensitive ways what they think of them, and it won't be pretty. That's Cersei all over, isn't it? It's more than just being a queen or a Lannister. There are other queens who aren't that way, like Marjorie. And after Robert's death, Ned wanted her arrested, but Cersei outmaneuvered him. She gains control of the Iron Throne, strengthens her political alliances with the Tyrells, and indirectly has Robert's illegitimate children killed so that there be no future threats to the throne. Later, after being publicly humiliated by the High Sparrow, she orchestrates the destruction of the Great Sept of Baelor by using wildfire to take down the whole thing. She wipes out the High Sparrow and the Tyrells. So if she doesn't like you, doesn't want to be under your control, or just because she feels like it, she's vengeful and bold. Look out for the ENTJ. Our ENTP is Tyrion Lannister. So ENTPs are known as the debaters. And you can see that all these types that we've talked about so far, the analysts are thinkers, and ENTPs are too. They like verbal sparring. They like to challenge the status quo, not necessarily in a mean-spirited way, but in a curious way and with a sense of humor, like Tyrion. They can be rebellious, so don't have any sacred cows. ENTPs are totally okay with tearing them down because they question everything they see to see if it makes sense and to test the boundaries, and this can turn some people off. When Tyrion was on trial for trying to kill Bran at Lysa's court, he demanded a trial by combat because he didn't trust crazy Lysa or her crazy son. He pled guilty to all sorts of things, but he didn't plead guilty to trying to kill Bran. When Tyrion was on trial for killing his nephew Joffrey, he knew the trial was a sham. And he knew he didn't do it, but Cersei wanted him dead. And if he didn't come up with something, she's going to get her way. His quick wit got him out of that too. First, he tried to point out the contradictions in the witness testimony. He attacked their logic, but he could feel the shift in public perception, but it came at a cost of Cersei's rage. And when he realizes that he can't talk his way out of this, he pivots. So ENTPs can use creativity and find innovative solutions to problems. Is that you? Okay, so now we're on to the idealists. These are the INFJs, ENFJs, INFPs, and ENFPs. And they care about people. They want to help people connect. They cooperate rather than compete. So you can already see how different they are from analysts. Idealists learn for deep conversations, not chit chat. They're idealistic. They want utopia, compassion, altruism, and understanding. They're empathic and open hearted, so they can be hurt if others aren't as vulnerable and empathic as they are. They're the dreamers. They live in their heads, so they can have issues with following through and putting all these ideas into action. And Game of Thrones has a lot of nasty characters, doesn't have any nice ones. Let's see. To our INFJ is Sansa Stark. The INFJ is the least common type when we include both genders. Only 1 to 3% of people are INFJs, so it's no wonder that they're considered the most misunderstood types. They seem social and outgoing, and they are, but they are also introverted, and they need a break from people. They get tired easily. They don't care about success in the traditional sense. They want to make a positive difference. They're driven by their values and will rebel against society if their morals and intuitions say to go a different way. INFJs are usually reserved. Sansa showed her INFJ-ness when Joffrey was abusive to her. She didn't run to her dad or openly rebel. She kept her thoughts to herself and became very cautious. She coped by retreating into her mind and holding on to fantasies of a better world. In fact, when she dreamt of her future with Joffrey, it was all about fantasy. So Sansa's quiet demeanor is what allowed Stark girls to get the better of Baelish, the master manipulator. She's not dumb. She could see through Baelish's manipulation and games with Arya. She knew it was a trap, and she used her intuition to catch him. Her compassion and belief in a better world is what prompted her to save Sir Dantos when Joffrey wanted to kill him for being drunk and for forgiving Theon. She was able to resent him and also have compassion for him. INFJs are my favorite people. They're rare, but I seem to collect them around me, and I'm really blessed for that. So Varys is another INFJ. When you see Sansa and Varys together, I think the INFJ-ness really pops. So like Sansa, he's quiet and stays in the background. He's really good at reading people and seeing through power plays and manipulation. He's got a keen mind and can outmaneuver people too. He believes in what he believes in, and that's the good of the realm. And this is why he smuggles Tyrion out of King's Landing. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't political. It was principled. He does the same thing for Ned Stark when he's in the dungeon. He goes down there to talk to him into accepting a solution that will allow him to live because he sees how things are going. He knows Ned is a good, honorable man. Doesn't work out, but he tries. And Varys is not a revolutionary or a soldier. He's not going to break Ned out or declare war because of it. That's not the INFJ way. Okay, so who is the ENFJ? Who's that? That's Khaleesi, Daenerys Targaryen. So ENFJs are similar to INFJs, except that they're extroverts. They're out in front rather than leading from the shadows. And they are warm leaders who exist to help others. They have a calling and a greater purpose to speak up when they see injustice. They want to right wrongs. They're sincere. They have pure intent and are charismatic. And people like them. Whenever you see the Khaleesi music's coming on, and you know that it's a moment when she's winning the hearts of others. She freed the slaves wherever she went. She started with the unsullied. She played it cool with the slaver. Remember that? She knew her agenda. She allowed him to insult her and underestimate her. She never let on that she could speak Valyrian, but she understood it all. And once she negotiated the trade, she ordered her dragon to burn him. She knew her dragon would never serve him and could not be sold because theirs was a union of the hearts. She needs good soldiers to take back the throne, so she takes charge and lets everyone see that she's in control. And she intuits that it's better for them to fight for her because it comes from their heart and their own choice, not because they're slaves, because it's what she would want. And she's ruled by her heart. But she's also driven by values, and this aligns with who she is. When we say someone is ruled by their heart, it can be easy to dismiss them as unwise, but the ENFJ isn't impulsive. They're calculated. They have a decisive plan, and that's Khaleesi through and through. To INFP, who's that? What's that? The INFP is the mediator. They are altruistic, eager to help a good cause, kind, poetic, unassuming, and have a rich inner life. They are sensitive, sentimental, and nostalgic. They are often lonely and invisible because they don't feel appreciated for the love of nature, music, art, and people. And who does that describe? That's Samwell Tarly. This is why Sam notices Gilly and goes to such risk to save her and her baby. He notices things. He cares. When the White Walker threatens Gilly and the baby, he kills it with dragonglass, not because he's brave, but because he's driven to protect them if he can. And when he succeeds, he's not puffing up his chest because he's done the impossible. He focuses on Gilly's safety. He does this again when Gilly's back at Castle Black and the night watchmen want to assault her. They beat him badly, but he can't stand by and let it happen without trying to protect her. He's a softie, even when he weeps for his brother and father who were so cruel to him when he learned that Khaleesi killed them. Yeah. Sam's loyalty isn't just to Gilly and his family. His whole desire to become a maester is to serve the realm. He wants to have a purpose and serve a good cause. And our last idealist is the ENFP. So ENFP is the extroverted INFP, and they're called campaigners. They're enthusiastic, creative, sociable, free spirits who are always genuinely smiling. They're open-hearted, open-minded, life of the party people who deeply want to emotionally connect and have meaningful lives. And they're introspective, full of imagination and wonder, and believe in things that may not have any scientific explanation. Our Game of Thrones ENFP is Oberyn Martell. He's always smiling, even when he's angry. He's playful, witty, curious, idealistic, and full of passion and imagination. When he first comes on the scene, Tyrion is supposed to meet him on the road and give him all this fanfare, but Oberyn sneaks into the city and goes directly to a brothel with his lover. This is an example of Oberyn's curiosity, life of the party, passion, and disregard for rigid formality. And once he does meet Tyrion, he's warm, easy to talk to, charming, and easy to like, even though Oberyn knows that Tyrion's father had a sister killed. You can't help but like him. He's immoral, dangerous, and likable. Oberyn volunteers to be Tyrion's champion because it gives him a way to avenge his sister. This is something he deeply believes in and is willing to risk his life for it. He would have succeeded too, but for his expressive style. If he'd gone straight for the kill, rather than try to make it a spectacle, he would have killed the mountain, but that's not the ENFP way. So we've done Analyst and Idealist. Sentinels are next. What these four types have in common is the desire for stability, predictability, and order. They are the glue that holds the universe together. Most people are Sentinels. They embrace rules, maintain standards, are consistent, dependable, and do well with hierarchies. They are practical people who like tradition because it's tried and true. And these are the ISTJs, ESTJs, ISFJs, and ESFJs. ISTJs mean what they say and say what they mean. They commit and follow through. They're honest people who live with integrity. They take responsibility for what they do, even if it's uncomfortable or embarrassing. They aren't showy. They're people of principle and conscience. Not many of them in Game of Thrones, but one huge INSJ stands out, and that's Ned Stark. Ned was King Robert's buddy, but he did not want to be in the limelight dealing with all that king crap. And that's why he lived way up north. He followed the rules and moral codes and expected others to do the same. He didn't play politics, and that's why he ended up dead. He was an honorable man in a dishonorable place who wouldn't bend to survive. He didn't know how to play the game and wasn't interested in learning because his own internal moral code couldn't even conceive of such a thing. This is why he didn't see Cersei's treachery or Littlefinger's. It was his loyalty to his friend and his king that condemned him to this life. So ESTJ, who's most like Ned but is an extrovert? And this is Stannis Baratheon. These two are not the life of the party. They can come across as kind of dour. When Ned shed the limelight, Stannis believes it's his by right. This is why he fights to the death for it. His brother told him to hold Storm's End, the Baratheon seat, and he did it. Even though they nearly starved doing it. Stannis felt like he deserved Storm's End after Robert became king, but Robert gave it to their younger brother Renly and gave Stannis Dragonstone, which was the Targaryen ancestral home. Made no sense at all. It had no wealth or prestige, but Stannis didn't complain because of the hierarchy. It was Robert's place to say. So when Robert died and Stannis felt that he was their true heir, he had no choice but to fight for it. He did that despite all odds, despite the money, the weather, the costs, everything. So ESTJs are good managers of people and situations. They take on difficult tasks and won't give up when things get rough. They're strong-willed but inflexible, judgmental, and too focused on social status. And all of these things led to Stannis' downfall. The ISFJ is next. ISFJs are defenders. They want to be of service and share their knowledge with others. They are collaborative and want a win-win. They are loyal, reliable, hardworking, have good practical skills, observant, humble, repress their feelings, and are a bit too altruistic. And this could leave others to take advantage of them. And who is that in Game of Thrones? It's Brienne of Tarth. She decided that Renly deserved her service and loyalty, and she gave it to him. When that ended, she pledged herself to Catelyn. When she died, she transferred that oath to her daughters, and she didn't really ask anything for it in return. She did it because she wanted to be of service and make a positive difference. And this is what contributed to her falling for Jaime. ISFJs are uncomfortable with emotions. They aren't going to make the first move. They're typically going to have a slow seduction that involves becoming emotionally involved first, like Brienne and Jaime do. Do you remember how they were sharing a bath and Jaime told her that he stabbed the Mad King in the back? Jaime was seen as a cavalier guy who didn't really give a crap about others, but we see his shame here. We see how being called a Kingslayer hurt him and has been a burden. He did that for the good of the people, and nobody knows it, except now Brienne. This vulnerability allowed her to see him in a different light, and she starts to trust him. Then Jaime rescues her from the bear. Jaime was captive, but his captors let him go, but not Brienne. Jaime also saved Brienne from rape by suggesting that their captors reach out to Brienne's father to ransom her for the sapphires from Tarth, the Sapphire Island. He rescues her again from the bear in the arena. So he shows that he's not so cold-hearted and that he's sensitive, and she warms to this. Finally, when he's struggling with his clothes after the Battle of Winterfell, she pulls him into bed. So yeah, ISFJs are a slow burn. Now, ESFJs are most social, and that would be Catelyn Stark. So ESFJs are loyal, traditional, duty-bound, community-minded helpers. They are practical people who can be selfless, too needy, inflexible, don't like conflict, and worry about their social status. And Catelyn stays true to character because everything with her is family, duty, and honor. She gives King Robert a welcome fit for a king when he comes to Winterfell. After Bran falls, she stays behind and takes care of her son and sits by his bedside for weeks. She fights off an intruder even though she's unarmed. She goes to King's Landing herself to warn Ned about what she believes is the Lannisters' plot. She kidnaps Tyrion. When she negotiated with Walter Frey for Robb to cross the Twins Bridge, she made a deal that she herself would have accepted for the good of the family. Marjorie Tyrell is another ESFJ. She's socially savvy, attentive to others, even the poor. She knows her role within the family and gains influence through relationships rather than power or force. And she aligns herself with Renly, even though he's a homosexual and is having an affair with her brother, because she wants to be queen. And she wants to consolidate the family power. When Renly dies, she becomes engaged to Joffrey, then Tommen, because she's not given up on her duty and personal desires. All the while, she uses her social connections and social graces to get through every difficulty. She even escapes Cersei's attempt to control and manipulate her by using her social skills. She does care what others think of her, though. So she participates in charity for the poor and presents herself to the faith militant and pious and relatable. To both Catelyn and Marjorie have a loyalty. Catelyn's primary loyalty is to her family and moral duty, and Marjorie's is to House Tyrell. Catelyn has a small social circle, while Marjorie's is quite large, public, and political. Catelyn uses rules and traditions because she believes in them. Marjorie uses them strategically. Neither likes conflict, but Catelyn deals with it directly and is guided by her morals. Marjorie is diplomatic and can manipulate if she feels called to. She can have a wide variety of expressions among the same type. Now we're down to our explorers, the ISTPs, ESTPs, ISFPs, and ESFPs. So explorers are spontaneous, bold adventurers who would rather make mistakes than have regrets. They are the risk takers who go outside their comfort zone. They're fun to be around, impulsive, and action-oriented, so they adapt well to circumstances. And our first type is the ISTP, also known as the virtuoso. ISTPs are authentic, direct, observant, independent, grounded, spontaneous, unapologetic, easily bored, self-reliant, skeptical, and insensitive. Isn't that the picture of Arya? She's a kid, and she lacks the social skills to measure what she says and be politically correct. But as she grows, she never adopts that. She just says what she means. When she sees her father killed, she doesn't break down. She doesn't search for allies. She strikes out on her own. She's got goals. She wants revenge. And so she practices her fighting skills regularly with single-minded focus. She doesn't enjoy the things that ladies do because they're boring. She doesn't want to sew, wear a dress, or have her hair done. She wants to explore, get her hands dirty, and have fun. And after she escapes from the Hound, she could go north. It's the logical thing, but she doesn't. She goes to Bravos to continue her training. I suspect she thinks that she will turn into a girl again, a dependent, and her freedom will end. So she takes her chances and plots her own path. On the day before the Battle of Winterfell, when everyone knows this could be their last night on Earth, Arya seeks out Gendry to have sex. She was a virgin before this, so it's a huge move, but it's an adventure. They have shared trauma, and this is a way to connect, feel alive, and let off some stress, so it's a practical choice. ISTPs are also not easy to get to know. They have feelings, but they aren't sure how to express them. And she's not making a declaration. She's living in the moment. And when she's done, she's done. It's like she dedicated herself to the many-faced God until she was done. She can close a door like nobody's business. ESTPs are known as the entrepreneur, and they're similar. They're also risk takers who like living on the edge. They're bold, original, practical, perceptive, direct, and can be perceived as insensitive, impatient, and impulsive and defiant. They can get things done, but they may miss the big picture. And this is our dear Jaime Lannister. Jaime's not a strategic thinker that his brother, sister, or father is. He has dyslexia, so that might be part of it, but he gets away with it because of his other talents, and he's a Lannister. Jaime's impulsivity leads him to killing Ned Stark's men to get Tyrion back, but that's a huge political blunder. When Robert dies, Ned confronts Cersei about her children and gives her the opportunity to run. Jaime then comes directly to Ned and challenges him. He's bold, decisive, and doesn't wait for orders or political maneuvering to protect his family. ESTPs tend to be notorious flirts because they're confident, bold, and don't care about rejection. They can have issues with long-term intimacy because they don't want to talk about deep things. They want to live them. They're easily bored, so they need someone who is exciting and active and curious as they are. I think this makes Jaime and Brienne a really good match. I was hoping there would be a reason here why Jaime went back to Cersei, but it's really not in his personality. Cersei was his only partner until Brienne, and this doesn't match the ESTP personality at all. So the writers did a good job with Game of Thrones up to season 6, but here's one mismatch with the Myers-Briggs. It works for the story, but it doesn't work for real people. And real people do tend to be classic. They do tend to follow the Myers-Briggs types. Okay, so ISFP, The ISFP is the adventurer. They're also adventurous, action-oriented, charming, love novelty, and are passionate, sensitive to others, imaginative, easily stressed, and have problems with problem solving, structure, and self-esteem. They're very good with the flow types of people who are guided by inner values and their moral compass. They are loyal and they value personal experience over social expectations. And you got to hear who this one is already, right? It's Jon Snow. So he's an introvert, he's quiet and shy. And this makes sense because he's a bastard who lives with his legitimate siblings and is always reminded that he's a bastard. So he keeps his thoughts and feelings private. Jon gets stuck north of the wall and lives with the wildlings to survive and gather information to take back with him to Castle Black. And with this move, he displays a sense of adventure for sure, but also a love of what's novel. And this gives him a chance to learn from personal experience rather than what he's taught about the wildlings. And this teaches him that wildlings are more free than the people on the other side of the wall, something that he deeply values. So ISFJs are hard to get to know. That F in ISFJ stands for feeling. They feel deeply, but they don't express it. They don't want to be rushed into a relationship, but they are caring and loyal partners. They probably aren't going to say, I love you, but they'll show you with acts of practical service. They need to feel that any relationship aligns with their morals and sense of what's right. And this is why Jon Snow didn't have a lover until Ygritte. He didn't want to create any bastards who had to live the life on the edge of society like he did. When Jon got with Khaleesi, it probably felt like a very good love match. So the ISFJ love being in the moment and having new experiences. Conquering the world and riding dragons always leads to something new, but ISFJs are really emotionally intelligent and tuned into how their partner feels. He probably knew before Khaleesi did how things were going to go. The ISFJs have high sense of morality, and Jon is Ned's son, and he has his views. He believes in doing what's right, protecting others from harm, and making sure that their own actions don't lead to hurting others. So when he put his duty over his love, well, makes perfect sense for the ISFJ. Okay, so ESFJ, who's the extroverted version of Jon Snow? That would be Bronn, the entertainer. One of my good friends is an entertainer. ESFPs are spontaneous, energetic, enthusiastic, bold, original, don't like to be bored, have good people skills. They're positive, sensitive, don't like interpersonal conflict, but they're risk takers. They're poor long-term planners. Like the ISFPs, they can be unfocused. They're light-hearted, but are not particularly ruled by morality. Yet at the same time, they don't intend to hurt others. There are more live and let live types of people who don't want to be controlled. And Bronn basically hooks up with Tyrion when he takes on the challenge to fight Servatus Egan at the Eyrie for Tyrion's freedom. Bronn's a sellsword, so he lacks morality and is looking for adventure. It's a risk, but it's a calculated one because he sees Servatus in all his heavy armor and knows that all he has to do is last long enough to tire him out. Bronn's quick-witted. He has lots of one-liners that are hilarious. For example, I think Tyrion said that the Eyrie was impregnable, and Bronn said, "Give me 10 good men and some climbing spikes, and I'll impregnate the bitch." So Bronn was really uncomfortable during the drinking game with Tyrion and Shay. He didn't want to share his past. And when he asked about love, he said, I've been in love before and found it wasn't worth the trouble. This can be the classic ESFP energy. Emotions are hard for them, despite being easy to be around and social. When Bronn was helping Tyrion escape, he said, I'm not going to lie. I enjoy a good bit of chaos. And that's classic ESFP energy too. They don't want to be bored. They prefer drama to peace as it makes them feel alive. And last but not least, I think one of the most fascinating characters of Game of Thrones is Theon. Why? Why in the heck did he betray the Starks? He loved Ned. He loved Jon and Robb like they were his brothers. And the answer lies in his Myers-Briggs types. Theon is another ESFP. Obviously, he's an extrovert. He's always doing the look at me thing. He liked to show off that he was good with a bow and arrow. Remember when Bran was being held by the wildlings and Theon shot them? That's Theon. He was always bragging to the prostitute what a ladies' man he was. He made bawdy jokes to impress the guys and the ladies. He does this because he needs attention, validation, and belonging. And this is why he betrays the Stark. to win his father's approval. He's obviously an S. S stands for sensing when it focuses on the immediate, physical, and practical. He's not a thinker. He's impulsive. Taking Winterfell was an impulse. Killing the Stark kids was an impulse. Theon's about pleasure, drinking, women, hunting, and fighting, and living in the now. Even when he was Ramsay's captive, he focuses on the sensations of fear, pain, and humiliation. Theon's an F. He's a feeler, not a thinker. He's driven by emotion and relationships, not logic. When he was around the Ironborn, he acted as if the Starks were beneath him and meant nothing to him, but he was plagued by guilt. He stood by Yara, rescued Sansa, and fought at Winterfell, all risking his life because of his deep emotional bonds with them. And he's a P. P's for perceiving. It means flexible, spontaneous, and sometimes inconsistent. See how great the Myers-Briggs is in understanding someone? It's got Theon pegged, doesn't it? This is a guy who wings it. This explains everything that he's done and shows the positives and negatives of the ENFP. George R.R. Martin is the author of Game of Thrones, and he was part of the series up to season 6. I think he did a great job of crafting these characters so they look like real people. Except for Jaime, they're textbook perfect. So which character are you? Do you look like your sidekick? If not, you want to take a test to make sure you are who you think you are and do some research. This is a really quick overview, and Myers-Briggs gets way deeper than this. So all the personality types have complexities and nuances that I didn't get into. And I just touched the highlights. And as you saw with Marjorie and Catelyn, people can have the same type and display it really differently too. And that's our journey through the personalities of Westeros, whether you're a loyal Ned Stark type, a strategic Littlefinger, or a fiery Daenerys. I hope this exploration of personalities helped you to see and appreciate your favorite characters and yourself in a whole new light. Myers-Briggs isn't just about labels. It gives us a lens to understand motivations, decisions, and relationships, both in the movies and real life. So next time you watch an episode or even navigate your own life, think about what's going on. What's the drive? Who's strategizing behind the scenes? Who's acting from the heart? Who's all about duty? And who's living in the moment? This isn't to intellectualize relationships, but to understand them. Like I've said a lot, I had no idea what motivated people. They were a complete mystery to me. And learning about what makes us tick made a huge difference in my ability to relate, feel comfortable, and be vulnerable with others. So thank you for joining us in the world of Westeros and personality. If you love this episode, subscribe and share, and let us know in the comments which Game of Thrones character you connect with and why. Check out the show notes for the free personality test. See you guys. Ciao.